water-worn river stones. Feel the soft moss lining a towering wall of limestone. When you feel these things, you're feeling the world the way we found it. With over 500 refuges across America, you don't have to go far to make a special connection with nature. Learn more at fws.gov/refuges. That's fws.gov/refuges.
You see the hunters take aim on huge savings at factory surplus sales. Low factory surplus prices on Scentlock, Walls, Muck, Lacrosse, Carhartt, and more. Plus, factory surplus sales has fall apparel for the entire family. Factory surplus sales in Montague.
What did they do? What did they do to my city? I pushed Michael Yu away from the binoculars and took a look. Hey! In the streets below, traffic had stopped. Pedestrians were lying on sidewalks and curled up in doorways. There was no sign of violence, no wrecks, nothing like that. It was as if the people in New York had simply decided to stop whatever they were doing and pass out. Ice coated my stomach. A line from the prophecy rang in my ears.
And see the world in endless sleep.
Not dead. He has put the entire island of Manhattan to sleep. The invasion has started. To find out what happens next, read Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library and visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
I knew I had a problem.
I tried counting calories, eating and eating.
Nobody else could possibly understand.
We understand. We're Overeaters Anonymous, and we have helped thousands of people stop their compulsive eating and start living a healthy, rewarding life.
With OA, I am living again and loving it.
Start living the life you deserve with help from Overeaters Anonymous. Find us on the web at oa.org.
They don't have to die, but they do. 24,000 children every day. My name is Orlando Bloom, and I believe that number should be zero. Believe in zero. Join the effort. Visit unicefusa.org.
Talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
Good morning, Muskegon. This is EyeOnMuskegon, and I'm Jim Riley, your host for this community conversation. With me today in Muskegon's Clear Channel studios is a new team for us. The man, the legend, Oscar Osbo, is facing some health issues, so keep him in your prayers, and thankfully we'll see him back next week. But we do have an able replacement in one of the real pros in the business, WKBZ producer Brian Thomas. Good morning, Brian, and thanks for being here early in the morning.
And you're welcome, Jim.
All right. And also helping us out, the Wanderer, I guess I call him the Happy Wanderer, as co-host this morning, from way down south in Michigan, from Ottawa County. At least I consider that way down south. The chairman of the Ottawa County Patriots, who's got all sorts of interesting background here. But Jim Chiodo, good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jim.
Thanks for taking a grand tour of our entire county on your way to try and find the station. So we appreciate your perseverance in finally arriving.
Real men don't use maps.
There we go. Well, the good news is that Muskegon County is a kind of an easy place to travel around in. So we got you here. We're going to talk to Jim just shortly about lots of things that are going on down in Ottawa County. And Jim also has his own radio show down there, too. We'll talk about that. But one of the cool things is this big sign that you've been able to put around town. And we'll hit that in just a minute. But 9 o'clock hour, we've got another, I think, spectacular, one of the more exciting guests that I can imagine phoning in just a little bit after 9 o'clock. Hans von Spakovsky. I think I got that right.
That's easy for you to say.
I know. It's going to be a rough day. I think we'll call him Hans. But he's from the Heritage Foundation. And Hans, along with the quite well-known John Fund, John is of the Wall Street Journal and the commentator and columnist and author, wrote, just a few months ago, a fascinating book that I read at the time. It's quite depressing to read. It's called Who's Counting? It's still, I believe, it's still a bestseller. It is... an excellent read. It is very scary, and where they uncover all sorts of different types of voter fraud that is currently going on in our country, and we really need to address this. So a little bit after 9 o'clock, we will have Hans on the phone, and we'll have a conversation with him. One of the quotes that I is a consistent quote with me on this show is a quote from Winston Churchill, and I'll just say it again because to me it's so important. Talk radio, political commentary is always criticized for being negative and being, bringing out things that make people unhappy and maybe even embarrassed. And this quote here is from Winston Churchill. Says, "Criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things." And Jim, you're doing that with your billboards down south, and John Fund and Hans von Spakovsky are
this
doing
where
that.
I point out your criticism of your pronunciation.
That's very good. Well, that fits perfectly in on this day in history. Today, among other things, is Mental Illness Awareness Week. So perhaps that accounts for our show and some of the commentary.
That's what I had this morning when I couldn't get off the right exit.
I'm sure there's a support group and probably federal money to fund those people who don't have or can't efficiently use their GPS instruments.
And of course, males still don't like to ask for directions.
Well, there's most certainly, and this is an alpha male that we've got sitting here with us. So it's not a shock that Jim Chiodo, chairman of the Ottawa County Patriots, brought his Conestoga wagon up without info. But again, he did make it. Hey, other interesting things that happened happened in history, or in fact some folks are celebrating this week, Fire Prevention Week, which of course is a biggie. And I'm all for fire prevention, but what I've seen over time is that the Fire Prevention Week seems to be also a vehicle that's used to ennoble firemen and the folks who are involved in putting out fires, which I think is wonderful, but it also seeks to perhaps blind people to the fact that these union contracts that many of the firemen are involved in are really quite municipality destroying. So we'll talk about that maybe some other time. It's also National Metric Week, and those of us who are old enough to recall when there was a big push to move the United States to the metric system, which may or may not be a good idea. But we had I know when gasoline was forced to advertise, gas stations were forced to advertise using the metric system, selling gasoline in liters. It just didn't work. And but nonetheless, those folks are tenacious in their interest in pushing the idea that we should go the way Europe has and much of the rest of the world. And of course, following Europe's lead these days, really, if you've been checking the news, really doesn't seem to be all that good of an idea. And, this is football season. And I found this an interesting statistic or an interesting point that happened in history. In 1918, the Georgia Tech football team played Cumberland College. The score was 222-0.
Whoa.
This is before the forward pass. Georgia Tech carried the ball for 978 yards without a pass.
How many yards? How many clicks is that?
I don't know. It's a stunning number. So hopefully we won't see anything like that. Watching the Michigan State game last night against Indiana, I was concerned that might happen to us, but thankfully the Spartans came back. Also, for those of you who are Broadway fans, and Honey Bunch and I are, or at least were, 30 years ago, Cats opened on Broadway, and Cats certainly wasn't the only major monster show, but Cats really did seem to change an awful lot of Broadway. But that was 30 years ago, so if you're a fan of Cats, you're old, at least early on.
Should I be singing at this point? Broadway is one of my favorite things that I sing in the shower.
Well, no. I was thinking, hey, we could really diversify the listening audience here with this, but no, I think not. Hey, but something did happen, and I just serendipitously happened to be there. In 2007, in California, Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected governor when they had this recall of the Democrat governor, Gray Davis. And you may recall that, which was, 9 years ago. But I happened to be in California on a 2-night stay. I was in the exact same hotel where they had the celebration party. And so when the cab took me to the hotel, I saw all these trucks outside with all the satellite dishes and that type of thing. And I said, what's going on? I said, well, they've got the celebration, the victory party, if it's going to be. And I was able to go to this thing. It was enormous. It's the biggest ballroom I've ever seen. But Arnold's lovely wife, Maria, or soon-to-be ex-wife, Maria, was there, and much of the Kennedy clan, and it was really cool.
Wow.
And that was 9 years ago today. So
Did you shake hands with Arnold?
I was one of what appeared to be maybe 5,000 people. I don't know how many people you can get into the biggest hotel ballroom I've ever seen, but no, I wasn't even near. I was kind of wishing I'd had some binoculars for that. So anyway, that's the exciting things that have happened today, or today in history. And hey, Jim, I appreciate you being here as a co-host, and I would like to talk a little bit about something that I think that you've done that is really, really impressive with this big sign that you put up. Tell the folks a little bit about it.
Well, first of all, I want to give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
This was the brainchild of a couple of young ladies from Hudsonville who are part of the Ottawa County Patriots group, if you will. And they had the idea to come up with some billboards. And at first, they got a very, very good price on those electronic billboards. But, very, very good price on an electronic billboard is like saying that you can lease a new Cadillac and using the word only $1,000 a month.
Yeah, quite expensive.
So it was very expensive. And one of the guys who was into equipment, his name's Andrew, by the way. I want to give credit where credit is due to him. He says, well, why don't we just get a vinyl cloth that they put on regular billboards, and we'll strap it to a truck, a semi truck trailer, and we'll park it someplace. Now, of course, you got to have permission from that place, which what he did get, and he took a picture of it and he threw it out on his Facebook, and on the billboard it said www.ottawacountypatriots.org, and first thing you know, some of our people are getting emails from their friends in Florida, Texas, etc. And I started getting them, and they says, how come this picture is not on your website? And I go, wow, I better get them out there. So I put a couple pictures of the trailer out there.
I added it to my blog, MuskegonPundit.com, which we use for show prep here.
Okay. And all of a sudden, how do I say this? All hell broke loose. Or the word is viral. I started getting emails from all over the country. And for those of you who don't know about hits, when you have a website and www.whatever.com, there are tools to, is anybody listening? Who's coming to my website? And you get hits or visits per day. And we were doing, through the last year and a half, 2 years, we were doing maybe 20, 30. Sometimes we'd bump up to 75. And somewhere in the beginning of September, that number jumped to 400 to 500, and it stayed there every day.
And you've got a good website. Give us the name of the website, too.
It is www.ottawacountypatriots.org.
And that's all one word, Ottawa County Patriots.
All one word. There's no dots except between the dot and the org.
Just an update. I posted it on my blog a couple of weeks ago, and I kind of move it up every once in a while because I think it's really cool with the photograph of your sign. And I've been getting, and I just got this morning, I didn't get a chance to respond, but I got a comment on my post asking me, thinking that perhaps I put it up, asking a question about it from somebody in Texas. So there we go.
First of all, I want to. Where did it go from there? Well, having all this traffic on the website is convenient because some of them stumbled over a button that we have on the website that's spelled DONATE, donate, and we started getting some people thinking it was a good idea and so on. And we had raised some money previous to the first billboard. Okay, and you said the billboard. We now have a total of 5 billboards displayed in and around West Michigan.
Now, I didn't know that. That's really cool. Are they all the same billboard?
They are not.
Okay.
If somebody wants to go to www.ottawacountypatriots.org, and there's a couple blogs there, and it talks about have you seen the billboards, or did somebody send you an email, and so on and so forth. And we're going to do a little revamping to the website here very shortly. There's a sliding picture at the top of the website, and we're going to rotate that, and they're going to rotate vertically, and we're going to put panels in there that shows all of the billboards. And but I think the thing that made me most crazy was, I would say, in the span of 3-4 weeks, I've had 400 emails. How do I get one of these billboards? Well, what do you want to do with it? Are you going to put it on a semi-trailer? Are you going to put it on a real billboard? And what size do you want? And they run about $400 for the 10 by 25 size, and accordingly, if you wanted half that, it would be roughly half. And then I started getting emails from, for instance, one lady in Oklahoma said that she normally donates to the Republican Party, but she's not happy with the message that is being put out by the GOP, too wishy-washy, not hitting hard enough, and she liked the message on our initial banner. By the way, that initial banner compared Mitt Romney's free market versus Obama's socialism. Talked about the successes of Romney's private investments in companies like Burger King and Burlington and Domino's and Dunkin' Donuts. And it compared the taxpayer investments into some really successful companies called Solyndra, Enerone, Beacon Power, Abound Solar, and so on. And
every one of those, by the way, just in case you watch major media and are not aware, but every one of those has either gone bankrupt. Well, actually, every one of these have gone bankrupt, and of course, your banner isn't big enough, your sign isn't big enough to cover all the ones that have gone bankrupt or are on deck at this point.
And ironically, every one of those companies, owners, CEOs, etc., happened to be major donors to the Obama machine.
You know, I want to just stop you here for a sec, because I think that's a critical point. So many people on the left are angry at big business for causing what they say many of the country's ills, and there's little question that the banks were most certainly complicit in the collapse of our economy some years back. But the Obama administration, and I would say, sadly, not horribly unlike what we've seen with the Bush administration and others, but the Obama administration has embraced this concept of crony capitalism. So if you, in fact, don't like the idea of government giving big, rich businessmen billions and billions of dollars, you've got to sit back and say, wait a minute, Obama's doing it too. And you've got to be angry at that, because it'd be one thing if it was successful, which government giving money to business rarely is successful. But in this case, Obama, as Mitt Romney said in the debate, he's been almost uniquely precise in finding companies that have absolutely no hope of success, and you've listed them on this banner. To the left in red is Romney's free market successes. Right next to it says Obama's socialism, a word that kind of scares people. It's a hurtful term, but the reality is there. And then to the on the far right, the third panel says the choice is clear. Do you want a businessman who has created billions, or a president who has wasted trillions? And it's really very, very cool. And hey, we are coming up to a break. We will be back with Jim Chiodo and Brian Thomas, and even me, Jim Riley, right after this break.
It's here. It's beyond big. It's the mega sale. Mega discounts, mega savings, and mega selection. And there's only one mega dealer in Michigan. That's Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC. The mega discounts for this sale are so big, other dealers can only wish they could sell this low. Drive a new Chevy Cruze, only $89 a month. Chevy Malibu, $149 a month. It's Mega Truck Month, and time is running out for you to save over $11,000 on all remaining 2012 Chevy Silverado 4x4s. Or drive a new Silverado Silverado 2013 for just $189 a month. This is no ordinary sale. This is a mega sale, and we're paying mega trade dollars. We want and need your trade. Plus, every new and pre-owned vehicle prices have been slashed for this mega sales event. Hurry, shop our giant 20-acre motor mall while selections are best. Where Michigan shops. Benton Chevrolet, Cadillac, GMC. Both sides of Henry Street, Muskegon. Don't miss this mega sale.
The Exquisite Corpse. A very unusual and completely amazing story pieced together out of so many parts that it is not possible to describe them all here, so go ahead and just start reading. The full moon lights the silver rails winding around dark mountains and over steep gorges of jagged rock and one freezing cold rushing black mountain river. I wish there was enough time to describe all of the funny twists and turns, especially the elephant clown party, that led up to now, but there isn't enough time because there is a ticking clock. And the two passengers we care most about don't know anything about it. In a sleeping berth in the third car from the end of the train are two children, 11-year-old twins who have just run away from the circus. The girl's name is Nancy, the boy's name is Joe. They have no idea that those are not their true names, though they will figure it out soon enough. To see what happens next, visit read.gov to read The Exquisite Corpse, a riveting adventure pieced together by John Sheska, Shannon Hale, Daniel Handler, and other popular authors. Explore new worlds. Read. This exciting message is brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
A message from Orlando Bloom, Joel Madden, Nicole Ritchie, Neo, and Taya Leone.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes.
Like not getting enough food or medicine.
Or clean, safe water to drink.
But we are gaining ground. A generation ago, twice as many children were dying.
Still, 24,000 every day?
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
Believe.
I believe that number should be zero. Believe in zero.
Join the effort. Visit UNICEFUSA.org.
I knew I had a problem.
Eating and eating.
I felt so alone.
We understand. We're Overeaters Anonymous, and we have helped thousands of people just like you. Start living the life you deserve. Find us on the web at OA.org.
Army Specialist Andrew Pike was paralyzed by a sniper while serving in Iraq. Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get the auto, housing, and vocational benefits he earned. You can help our paralyzed veterans. Visit
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090. WKBZ.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dad.
And we are back at EyeOnMuskegon. We've got Jim Chiodo from the Ottawa County Patriots, Brian Thomas subbing for the legendary Oscar, and me, Jim Riley. We are talking, we're talking about energized citizens who are taking the time, the effort, and raising money in some cases to present a message that I think really is unique, in particular, given that it's a message that many people may not be aware of the successes of Mitt Romney and in his days at Bain Capital, and the horrible, tragic failures of the President Obama's administration in pouring billions and billions of dollars into companies that are bankrupt. And, of course, the double downside here is that the folks who at least were hired for some period of time before before these companies went bankrupt, now, in many cases, they are on unemployment and on food stamps and other things. But the good news is that they have some support. The bad news is that our country that must borrow from China in order to pay these bills is forced into borrowing even more money. So
not the owners.
And yet the owners are multi-millionaires who are some of the largest contributors to the Obama campaign. And by the way, this does happen to a far lesser extent with Republican leadership too. And we need to kick those bums out no matter what party we find them in. So Jim,
a bum is a bum.
Jump on this one. And you had some. You were going to finish up on your sign situation.
Yeah, that lady in Oklahoma wanted me to find places to put these in New Mexico, Colorado, and Indiana. And I have been doing this solid for the last 2 weeks. People calling me, they want a billboard here. I needed to tell them that, you got to find out where you can put it. If you can get a semi-trailer, and no, you cannot pull a semi-trailer with your Yugo. So it was a lot of logistics, but I've got these billboards all over the country.
How about with a Chevy Volt?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. We're not going to outfit
But that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about next.
Great segue. Before we head into it, I want to say I just, on MuskegonPundit.com, I did just elevate the article with the photograph and your information to the top item on MuskegonPundit.com, too. So you can see that sign, and there's some links to your organization, too.
Okay, that's the truck one, right?
That's the truck one, correct.
And yes, for you people who are spell checkers out there, there is a spelling error on that. The last bankrupt, but it's been fixed.
Well, it hasn't been fixed yet. I've got Jim's name spelled incorrectly. Apologize for that. I will straighten it
No, I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking about the banner.
Yes, I know that you said
Bankrupt instead of bankrupt.
Hey, this is what happens when citizens put their own money in. Every once in a while, there's a mistake. And you know what you do when you find a mistake? You fix it. When government finds a mistake, what do? They try to cover it up, and their buddies in the mainstream media, in fact, help them through that. Hey, but I've wrecked my segue. But you really opened my eyes very sadly last week in a conversation talking about this great success, in quotes, that was going on in Ottawa County, soon to hit Muskegon County, with this LG battery manufacturer. What's going on down there?
Well, a couple of years ago when they were putting the LG plant in, and they received like $300 million. I think it was million, not billion.
Yeah, who's counting?
Yeah, right. Who's counting? Right. And I said to myself, boy, this is not good. And I wasn't the only one who said that. But fast forward 2 visits from Obama later, and they're not making anything. They're not making any batteries. And
they still got all sorts of folks employed.
Oh, yeah. They got a couple hundred people. Now, that's LG. There's another 150 or so over there at Johnson Controls, but they didn't get a whole new building built. They at least reused their existing facilities.
And these are building batteries for cars that people are not buying, like the Chevy Volt.
Correct. Now, let's be specific about that. They are assembling batteries. The batteries are manufactured, if you will, over in Korea by LG Chem Corporation.
Okay.
And basically they ship them over here, and they're bolted together now. And maybe bolted is not the right term. Maybe they have to be wired or what have you.
Some way.
And so that's the idea.
Well, let's. I want to speed it up here because we are running a little bit out of time, and I'd like to come back to it after the break, or after we speak with Hans. But lots of people were hired. The project, as you say now, the project doesn't seem to be working out. And a lot of people are on layoffs, which is wonderful. But it seems to me the money's still flowing in. Explain that.
Well, it's not a layoff. It's a furlough. And apparently, and this is somewhat speculation, but the state tax grants that they're getting are based on X number of employees, full employment. And somehow or another, they're still counted as employees, even if they're off work or on work. And they were like rolling furloughs. These guys worked for 2 weeks, and then they were off for 2 weeks, and then the other guys, they rotated. Ironically...
So they're not building any product, or at least they're certainly not building much product, but they're still counted as full-time employees.
And the ones who are working aren't doing anything either. From what I hear, they're trimming the bushes and mowing the lawn and dusting the floor.
And you're still getting the federal and state credits and everything else.
To my knowledge, I haven't seen the checks, but
it's nice that we're supporting a nice South Korean corporation. Hey, we've got that wonderful music here. We will be coming back, and after the break, we will be talking with Hans von Koff. I better work on that over the break. We'll be back.
Tom Sanaki, and it's polka time, and a perfect time to gather your family together for a good, clean, wholesome family show every Saturday and Sunday mornings right here on the Talk of Muskegon with the Polka Melodies. News Talk 1090 WKBZ Muskegon, WOOD HD2 Muskegon, and NewsTalk1090.com. Come on.
It's polka time, polka time, polka time, polka time. Have the polka melody.
Need a boost to be your best? Drink SK Energy Shots. None of the bad stuff in it, so you never crash or get the jitters. Just a smooth rush of energy that tastes great. New SK Energy Shots. Powerful, pure energy. Available at Rite Aid, GNC, CVS, and your local retailer.
Holland Hydroponic Outlet has it all. Complete light systems, hydroponics, ventilation, nutrients, and soil. In Holland, Grand Haven, and South Haven. Check out Torched Glass Art Studio next to the Holland store, creating one-of-a-kind glass pipes.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090, WKBZ Muskegon, and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Let Xfinity Internet transform all of your devices into turbojets of web surfing. Slow DSL is nothing like this. Ask how to get the Xfinity Triple Play from Comcast for $99 a month for 12 months. Plus, get a $100 Visa prepaid card. Tomorrow could be awesome if you call today. Xfinity, the future of awesome. Visit Comcast.com/Xfinity now. Offer ends 11/30/12. Restrictions apply. Equipment, installation, taxes, and fees extra. Visit Comcast.com for details.
Army Specialist Andrew Pike became paralyzed while serving in Iraq. Andrew and his father explained the impact of his injury.
At first, you think, I want my son to be able to walk.
My injury was a gunshot wound to the left abdomen from a sniper. My first contact with paralyzed veterans was in Walter Reed.
Paralyzed Veterans National Service officers work with our injured veterans to ensure they get the benefits they have earned. NSO Michael Killen explains.
We try to reassure them what benefits are out there, and we try to educate them and take some of that stress away from them.
Paralyzed Veterans of America helped Andy get the auto, housing, and vocational benefits he earned.
PVA did a fantastic job making sure that he got those benefits on a timely basis.
Right now I'm going back to school to earn a degree, and I'm just spending time with my wife and child.
To learn how you can help our paralyzed veterans, visit PVA.org. A public service message from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know what to do about it.
I tried counting calories, I took pills, eating, and then more eating.
I really wanted to stop, but nothing could make me stop.
At one point, it was so bad that I just felt like giving up.
I felt so alone.
Like nobody else could possibly understand.
We understand. We're Overeaters Anonymous, and we have helped thousands of people just like you. People who want to stop their compulsive eating and start living a healthy, rewarding life.
Overeaters Anonymous, help me get my life back.
Now I eat in a way that's healthy and good for me.
I never realized what I was missing out on.
With OA, I am living again and loving it.
Start living the life you deserve with help from Overeaters Anonymous. Find us on the web at oa.org.
Thanks, honey.
You're welcome.
My husband needed a CT scan to check his heart. Turns out he's fine, but talk of radiation in the news made me a little concerned. So I asked our doctor, how will this exam improve his care? Are there alternative tests that don't use radiation? And is the facility accredited for quality and safety? Our doctor told me if you need a scan, the benefits outweigh any risk.
If you're concerned about radiation, ask your doctor and get the facts at imagewisely.org.
Here's the official News Talk 1090 WKBZ forecast. For today, cloudy with a chance of showers at a high of 49. Northwest winds 5 to 10. Tonight, partly cloudy, a low of 41. Southwest winds 10 to 15. It'll be mostly sunny tomorrow with gusty winds out of the southwest at 20 to 30 miles an hour, with a high of 59. It's still windy on Tuesday with a chance of showers at a high of 60. For Wednesday, more showers at a high around 50. News Talk 1090, the Talk of Muskegon.
America had just gone to war when Felipe Adams volunteered.
I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For Armando de la Rosa, the Navy was a chance to serve and see the world.
I got medically discharged in 2001.
For injured veterans like Felipe Adams, there are veterans like Armando de la Rosa ready to help.
Our training is to better the veteran.
Paralyzed Veterans of America, changing lives, building futures. Visit PVA.org.
Debtadvice.org. This has been a public service message.
News Talk 1090 is the Talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum,
well, that dadgum government still is interested in having its hands in every pocket of our clothes. And one of the reasons it's got its hands in every pocket of our clothes is because a fair number of people are voting in elections who really should not be voting in elections. And thankfully, there's a Morning.
Good morning.
And Hans is, in addition to many other things, is the Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and it's the Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. And actually, your biography is a real thrill for me to read. I've got one of my best friends is an MIT grad, and I saw you also as an MIT grad. We love your football team. Which, of course, you don't have a football team. You just put out intelligent, well-educated young Americans and others. But, Hans, you and John Fund of the... is John still with the Wall Street Journal?
No, he's now the National Affairs correspondent for National Review.
Okay, wonderful. And, of course, he's from the, had been in the past affiliated with the Wall Street Journal. He's on Fox News and Variety. Actually, both of you have been all over the media. But you folks, a few months back, wrote a book that I think is a stunner. I will admit it was one of the more depressing books that I read because you did it very clearly and exposed this cancer that truly is growing, I think, in our country. The name of your book is called Who's Counting? How Fraudsters and Bureaucrats Put Your Vote at Risk. I read it when it first came out, which was a few months ago, and then I went through it again last night, just looking at some things, and oh my golly, I'll let you take it from there, but I truly recommend anybody just plug into Amazon or wherever, Who's Counting, and you can get far more information than we'll be able to cover in this show.
Well, thanks. You know, we wanted to put together a book that really did two things. One, laid out the fact that there really is voter fraud in this country, and we go through in, I think, pretty good detail and list actual cases, real prosecutions, and fraud that actually changed election outcomes. Part of the attempt here was to get rid of this false narrative that's unfortunately being perpetuated by the mainstream media that we just don't have any fraud in this country. And the other thing we wanted to do was come up with some recommendations for how to change things to make things better.
Yeah, and if I can just touch base on, to me, what is the most pernicious of all of this entire discussion, and that is the absolute denial of almost everyone in the Democrat Party and almost everyone in the mainstream media that there is any voter fraud happening at all. And in fact, your book goes into to explaining all the different ways that voter fraud's out there. But the problem is, if you refuse to admit that you've got the cancer, then you're not even going to bother to even consider a treatment.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately true. Now, look, I don't doubt there are some folks there who sincerely believe that, but a lot of them, they know different, and yet they keep saying that. And, they keep getting embarrassed by it. About 2 weeks ago, you all may have read that the Maryland Democratic Party had to write a letter to the governor of the state withdrawing their Democratic nominee for the 1st Congressional District. Why? Well, they discovered that she had registered and voted in both the state of Maryland and Florida.
We did talk about that on our show a little bit, yes. But again, there's the proof that not only is voter fraud happening, it's happening at a national level, at a level so obvious and clear that they had to pull their candidate. And we didn't see the frowny faces, from Katie Couric and the various crews talking about, hey, disenfranchisement of votes, or people who are truly should not be running for office who are running for office.
No, you didn't hear a word about that, and you don't hear other things. Again, just recent stuff. Look, again, a couple of weeks ago, a Democratic state legislative a legislator in Arkansas had to resign his office after he was convicted of voter fraud, along with 3 other individuals in a race that he won by only 8 votes. And again, that points out one of the things that we try to illustrate in our book is that there may not be voter fraud everywhere in the country all the time in elections, but there's enough of it that we should be worried, and it could make the difference in a close election.
Well, you bring up any number of examples, example after example, but just take it to the national level. Certainly everyone's familiar with the Bush-Gore election, which was 500-some votes that changed an entire presidential election. But the one that really stuck in my craw was the Minnesota senatorial election.
Yeah, that was certainly an interesting race. Probably the closest Senate race in U.S. history from 2008. Most people know that on Election Day, the incumbent Norm Coleman was declared the winner by a little over 700 votes out of 2.9 million cast, but Al Franken contested the election. They did several recounts. There were many problems with the way they did that. But at the end of 8 months of litigation, Al Franken was declared the winner by 312 votes. Well, we know now that 1,100 felons voted illegally in that election. That's 4 times the margin of victory of a race that put Al Franken in the Senate and provided the 60th vote for Obamacare to get passed by the president.
And this really illustrates the power and the attraction of voting illegally, getting extra votes for whatever candidate or whatever issue that you're interested in supporting. And we have, of course, everyone in the country has got the November election coming up. But here in Michigan, we have 6 statewide ballot initiatives. Huge amounts of money involved in these, and we have essentially a 4-page, 20 inches long each page ballot that very few people, I think, are going to be willing to go all the way through with the ballot initiatives on the end. And if you're interested in our case, ensuring that unions are part of the state constitution, it wouldn't hurt to get an extra few thousand votes, would it?
Oh, well, no, and in fact, your Secretary of State has been properly concerned over the fact that apparently Michigan's got hundreds, if not thousands, of people who aren't U.S. citizens registered and on the rolls.
Well, can you explain some of the different types of voter fraud? Because you just brought one up where you've got a person who has been nominated and won their primary running for higher office, and in fact is voter fraud? It's a felony, is it not?
It is, and it covers everything from, for example, absentee ballot fraud. That's the tool of choice, as we call it, for people who want to steal elections because it's so easy to do. And often what happens there is, it's easy for candidates or others to figure out, for example, people who are registered but don't vote, haven't voted in past elections. Well, it's very easy to request an absentee ballot in their name.
Well, let me
to a different address and then vote the ballot.
Let me fill you in on how it works here in Michigan. I suspect in other states also. But for $10 in Muskegon County, which is where we are located, for $10 you can get a CD that has every voter in whatever election you want. It's got their complete name, their birth year, their complete address, whether they voted absentee ballot last time, whether they are automatic absentee, or whether they voted in a polling place. And you can also, for another $10, buy a list, an Excel spreadsheet of every single registered voter in the county. So it's pretty simple to sift out those people who've chosen not to vote, let's just say in the 2008 or the 2010 elections. They probably are not going to vote in the 2012 election. So you're probably going to get a fairly large list in Muskegon County, certainly of 10,000 people who they're registered because of motor voter, but in fact they don't vote. Now, and you've got just about everything you need in order to vote, because in Michigan we have a wonderful photo ID required to vote law, unless you don't want to show your photo ID, which means, and I've done that quite often, you walk in, say, I don't have my photo ID. They give you a little form where you fill out, and you must sign, stating that you are who you are. It doesn't take much. The average age of the ladies behind the ballot area, or the where you vote, to check you in and to make sure that you are who you are. The average age, I think, is about 96, and certainly
104.
Well, it's sadly, and as you mentioned in your book, it's another issue, because we don't have young people interested in this, and in fact, they're not certainly trained in any way, shape, or form with a signature, to confirm that you are the right person. And anyway, it's easy to do here in Michigan, where we have theoretically one of the tougher laws.
Well, would it make sense to use some of those TSA officials at the airport for that purpose?
Yeah. I think we certainly, the professionalism of the federal government, again, might be necessary here in the local areas.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that should be changed. There should not be this exemption that basically knocks a huge hole in the ID requirement, because that piece of paper where somebody swears that they are who they say they are, well, it's completely worthless, because if an impersonator, for example, shows up to vote in the name of somebody they know isn't going to show up at the polling place, how are you ever going to find them after the fact if you discover that there's a problem? Well, you're not.
Well, there's that. I mean, again, let's say that you are caught, as you mentioned. Sometimes when people check in at the polling location, on one occasion anyway, there was someone said, "Hey, wait a minute, that's a friend of mine. He's dead. You're not him." Sort of a Lloyd Benson response. But what's going to happen when that person is outed? They're going to walk out the door. Maybe they're going to run out the door. The little old lady's going to go chase him, tackle him, bring him, gag him, and call the police.
Right. No, it's not going to happen. It's very rarely that kind of thing is caught. But we know how easy it is, because you all, I'm sure, recall the undercover videos that James O'Keefe made during the Republican primaries this year, in which they sent people in to vote in states that don't have photo IDs, including New Hampshire. And in each case, they asked in the name of a voter who they discovered was dead, but was still on the registered voter rolls. And, for example, in New Hampshire, every single individual who went into a precinct, with one exception, the people were prepared to hand them a ballot. And the exception was just like what you're talking about. One of the guys went into a precinct where it just so happened that the precinct worker knew the voter and knew that they had died.
Well, and last year, I believe it was announced that the state of Florida had purged 53,000 dead voters from their registered voter rolls. Now, think about the hanging Chad election of Bush Gore, and 500-some votes. Here you have 53,000 dead voters that were recently set to be purged. I would hope that did happen. Let me ask you, well, there's another issue here, too, and that is when you're caught cheating, voting illegally, as you said, it's a penalty, but what is the ultimate punishment that you will face if you are caught?
Well, the problem there is that while a lot of these kinds of violations of election laws are felonies, judges, first of all, prosecutors don't tend to like to pursue these cases, and second, judges all too often go easy on the people who are found guilty. And, one of the examples that we give in the book is these 3 election officials, precinct workers in Tennessee, who were involved in fraud that changed the outcome of a state Senate legislative race in 2005. There are all these great quotes from the judge when he presided over the case, talking about how horrible this was and what a threat to democracy it was. And then what did he do? Well, he gave the 3 election officials probation. They didn't spend a single day in jail.
Yeah. So not only we don't have a policy or a structure in place to catch them, in the rare event when someone is caught, there is essentially no punishment. And when you have that, and let's compare it with, let's say, shoplifting. If there was no procedure in place to stop people from shoplifting, and in the event that they were caught, there's no punishment, would we expect to have more shoplifting in the Walmarts of the United States?
I think we would.
Okay, and we have the exact same situation with our election process in far too many places in this country, and yet there's no outcry. And, of course, the simple reality is that you're probably going to pay a whole lot more in the way your life is, or the way your children's opportunities are, and the amount that you pay in taxes or on fixed highways and roads from governmental cheating than you would from Walmart having trouble with shoplifters.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true, and that's something that, John Fund and I were hoping we could maybe change a little bit by trying to bring some light and attention to this issue.
Well, again, to me, the biggest, it isn't a surprise that people would cheat. It is a shock to me, truly is, that in fact the mainstream media not only would ignore the the issue, but in fact cover it up and bring on mouthpieces like the League of Women Voters and others who say that people like you, people like myself and the guys in this room here,
conspiracy theorists.
Well, not only conspiracy theorists, but we are attempting voter suppression. We are racists. We are about as we might as well have hoods on our heads. I don't know, Hans. You've got a foreign-sounding name. Maybe you're one of those foreigners that just doesn't like Americans voting.
Well, I've had that accusation made, and you're right. I mean, look, the idea that requiring a photo ID when you vote is somehow the imposition of Jim Crow, that is historically completely preposterous. But that is the theme that you find in the mainstream press and that you hear repeated by people like former President Bill Clinton.
Well, we hear it. I hear it all over the place. We live across the Lake Michigan from Milwaukee. Charlie Sykes has got a great radio show over there, and time and again, when they are finding clear evidence of election fraud, the constant retort is, hey, we're not. Show me the people you've caught. The fact that no one is caught is therefore now proof that in fact nothing is going on. And the reality is, though, your book is absolutely packed with people who have been cheating and caught, even in the face of a country that refuses to really put in play any procedures, any policies, any protections against it. And then what happens not only to you, but how about the gentleman who did these videos, who there were attempts to prosecute him when he came up with the video proof of people cheating at the polls.
Yeah, that actually shows a lot of what's wrong in this area, because O'Keefe, for example, Maryland prosecutors went after him for using undercover video. They were more interested in going after him than actually doing something about the problems that he uncovered, and that says it all about what's wrong with that particular state.
Don't look behind the curtain. Nothing here. But,
nothing going on here.
To emphasize this, the League of Democratic Women Voters have been trumping the fact that in our state, Republican county clerks are saying, oh, no, there's no dead voters voting here. Right here in Ottawa County, they're using that quote. And been in the paper. No fraud here. This is all disenfranchisement.
Well, and there's a that sort of makes sense, because if you're a county clerk, Republican or Democrat, you don't want to admit that voter fraud's been going on. So it's not a surprise that a Republican clerk who has no tools to catch cheaters is going to say, "Well, I've not seen any evidence of it." Well, it's funny. I thought we might have turned the corner, because my favorite, and I'm sure, Hans, your favorite newspaper, the newspaper of record, the New York Times, had a headline: New York Times, more suspicious voter forms found in Florida. And I thought, my golly, here you have, at least the New York Times is maybe turning the corner. Maybe they read your book. You probably sent them a copy over there. And then I read the article. In the article, I just took a couple of sentences from it. I'll quote it. The number of Florida counties reporting suspicious voter registration forms connected to the Strategic Allied Consulting firm, the firm hired by the state Republican Party to sign up new voters, has grown to 10. So they did find it interesting and important enough to report on voter fraud when Republicans were involved in it.
No, that's right, because otherwise their whole attitude is there's no voter fraud in the country, and they actually have attacked me and John for even talking about this.
Well, I would like to make mention, too, and perhaps you can't go this far, but I'm going to, because I see there are certain areas, and I've spoken with people who have been involved on our board of canvassers and others in elections, but the voter fraud, the organized voter fraud, most of which that I've seen in your book, and most of which I am personally familiar with, tends to be on the Democrat side.
Surprise.
That is unfortunately true. Now, it doesn't mean that Republicans don't commit voter fraud, but look, part of the reason for that is that a lot of the fraud you see is conducted by big city machines, the kind you see in Philadelphia, the kind we've seen in Chicago,
St. Louis.
The Republicans, they had big city machines, and they committed that kind of fraud back when they controlled the big cities, but they lost control of all of the urban areas starting in the 1950s. There are no Republican machines left in any major city in the United States.
Well, and one of the things that I've heard, because I quite often enjoy, or at least I take the time to listen to left-wing talk radio or MSNBC, and one of the I think very successful tools that the Democrat Party and liberals in general have used to galvanize and motivate their voting population is the fact that the Republicans are the ones who steal elections. The Republican Party is the party that steals your vote, disenfranchises you. We've got the League of Women Voters out there, again, accusing anybody who would want to bring in photo ID and all of essentially being racist and get involving in voter suppression. And when you're told by your leaders that you have been wronged, that the other party's been cheating, that sort of gives you an emotional crutch to cheat on your own to offset the evil things that those bad Republicans and that guy named Hans and his buddies have been foisting upon the innocent public.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that, and this was actually brought home to me by a case that occurred in Troy, New York last year. Several local Democratic officials and their campaign consultants were convicted of voter fraud, and one of the consultants, when he was interviewed by the police, said, well, this is accepted behavior. We've always done it here like this.
Yeah. And there was little outcry from that response, if I recall.
There was not. I don't recall reading about that response in the New York Times or the Washington Post.
Well, see, to me, the worst part of all of this, aside from the media cover-up, and we did in the old days we expected the media to keep the politicians honest, and now I guess the single best argument for voting for Republicans is that if the Republicans are out there cheating and doing bad things, at least the media will out them. The problem is when it is Democrats, they tend not to be interested in doing that. But to me, the worst result of this disaster of fraud, and it's endemic, it's huge, and there's so many different levels, but is the fact that people like myself and others are going to say, well, wait a minute, if the left is doing this, the only way that we can compete, and if the law enforcement refuses, and as you've so horribly portrayed in your book, the Attorney General Holter and others have said we're not going to enforce these laws, then there's an incentive on the side of others to get involved in cheating too. We're losing confidence in the entire system.
Well, that I guess that tendency might be there, but I think people need to resist that. And in fact, what is happening instead, and I think this is great, is that there are a lot of state legislators and now some really good secretaries of state who are trying to counter this by doing things like requiring photo ID, putting in new laws that require proof of citizenship when you register to vote, and doing things like Florida, which sued the Obama administration and the Department of Homeland Security to force them to give the state access to immigration records so that they could start checking whether people who are registered to vote in the state are not U.S. citizens.
Well, we need to be strong, and we need to support these secretaries of state who are saying, hey, call me a racist, call me a voter suppressionist. We care about everybody's vote being counted. In fact, if somebody steals a vote, it's my vote that's gone.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Well, you mentioned one thing that's sort of breaking news happened this past week, but on your website, the situation in Pennsylvania.
That's right. Pennsylvania also passed actually a really good law that not only requires photo ID for in-person voting, but it also requires photo ID for absentee balloting. And they, of course, were sued, this time in state court, by the usual suspects, the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, and a judge. The parties that sued, they may have won the battle, but they lost the war. Because what the judge issued in his decision last week was he said, well, it's too close to the election for us to be able to effectively implement this photo ID law. So people will still be able to vote even if they don't have a photo ID, but that's only for this election. And in fact, officials can't ask for a photo ID, but it was pretty clear that they think, the judge thinks, that this law is constitutional, and it'll be in effect for future elections.
Now, this is the important one.
Yeah,
well,
this
is the important one, and that's a good point. Is this likely to go to the Supreme Court? Is this ultimately going to be a national issue, or I understand, of course, states set their own rules?
Yeah, no, this isn't going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court because, in fact, the U.S. Supreme Court said that photo ID laws are perfectly constitutional back 4 years ago, in 2008, when it upheld Indiana's photo ID law. That's why the parties who sued in Pennsylvania did so in state court, not federal court, because they were making a claim that it was unconstitutional under the state Constitution, not the federal Constitution.
We've got to come up to a break. Would you be willing to hold over? Because I'd like to have you address the terrible disenfranchisement of our military service members.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
All righty, we'll take.
It's here. It's beyond big. It's the mega sale. Mega discounts, mega savings, and mega selection. And there's only one mega dealer in Michigan. That's Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC. The mega discounts for this sale are so big, other dealers can only wish they could sell this low. Drive a new Chevy Cruze, only $89 a month. Chevy Malibu, $149 a month. It's Mega Truck Month, and time is running out for you to save over $11,000 on all remaining 2012 Chevy Silverado 4x4s, or drive a new Silverado 2013 for just $189 a month. This is no ordinary sale. This is a mega sale, and we're paying mega trade dollars. We want and need your trade. Plus, every new and pre-owned vehicle prices have been slashed for this mega sales event. Hurry, shop our giant 20-acre motor mall while selections are best. Where Michigan shops. Benton Chevrolet Cadillac GMC, both sides of Henry Street, Muskegon. Don't miss this mega sale.
Smog, garbage, sewers, car exhaust. Today's world puts our sense of smell on overload. Luckily, there are places we can go to refocus our senses. Our national wildlife refuges. When you visit, your nose will instantly recognize the purity of nature. Bask in the aromatic scent of the black pine trees blowing in the wind. Detect the sweet fragrance of primroses, wild violets, and blue sage. Smell the fresh salt water in the air as waves crash into rocky shoals. When you smell these things, you're smelling the world the way we found it. With over 500 refuges across America, you don't have to go far to make a special connection with nature. Learn more at fws.gov/refuges. That's fws.gov/refuges.
A message from Orlando Bloom, Neo, Joel Madden, Lawrence Fishburne, Taya Leone, and Nicole Richie.
They do not have to die, but they do.
24,000 children every day.
They die for reasons we can prevent.
Like not getting enough food or medicine or clean, safe water to drink.
24,000 children every day.
But we are gaining ground. A generation ago, twice as many children were dying.
Still, 24,000 every day?
They don't have to die.
They do not have to die.
They don't have to die, but they do.
They die because they are young and vulnerable.
They die because through no fault of their own, they are poor.
24,000 children.
24,000 children.
24,000 children every day.
My name is Taya Leone, and I believe.
My name is Joel Madden.
My name is Nicole Richie.
My name is Neo, and I believe.
My name is Lawrence Fishburne.
My name is Orlando Bloom, and I believe that number should be 0. Believe in 0.
Join the effort. Visit unicefusa.org. Army Specialist Andrew Pike became paralyzed while serving in Iraq.
My injury was a gunshot wound to the left abdomen from a sniper. My first contact with paralyzed veterans was in Walter Reed.
Paralyzed veterans National Service Officer Michael Killen.
We try to reassure them what benefits are out there, try to educate them, and take some of that stress away from them.
Right now I'm going back to school to earn a degree, and I'm just spending time with my wife and child.
You can help our paralyzed veterans. Visit pva.org.
Ross, Carhartt, and more. Plus, Factory Surplus Sales has fall apparel for the entire family. Factory Surplus Sales in Montague.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got.
And we are back at EyeOnMuskegon. Jim Riley, your host. We've got Brian Thomas and Jim Chiodo. And on the phone from, actually, Hans, where are you right now?
I live in Virginia, work in Washington, D.C.
All righty. Well, from Virginia, we've got Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation, and author and all-around very bright guy. We're talking about voter fraud. And, Hans, one of the chapters of your book addresses military voting, which in and of itself, suppressing our soldiers and sailors and airmen, their vote is awful. But interestingly, most of them, or at least the majority of military folks, tend to vote as Republicans, and the only area that nobody seems to be concerned about voter suppression nationally with the mainstream media is this fairly well publicized, but without the frowny face, well, I guess it's very obvious voter suppression and of our military service members.
Yeah, you don't see any headlines, again, in places like the New York Times complaining about this, and yet if you look at the voting turnout of military voters, it is as low as or lower than the shockingly low rates of black Americans during that caused the civil rights movement to spring up. I mean, it's really just terrible. And this year, just a month ago, the Inspector General of the Department of Defense released a report having looked at this very issue. And it said that at least half of the military installations, so military bases, all over the world, the DOD had not done what they are supposed to do under federal law, which is to open up what's called a voting assistance office. In other words, an office on each base that would help military folks stationed there to request their absentee ballots, make sure their addresses are updated with their home state election officials. They were directed to do this by a law passed in 2009. They haven't done it.
Now, let me ask you this, because you've made it clear that there are literally no penalties for the violations of federal laws. We normally think, I would think, that the military would tend to be very interested in allowing and encouraging and enabling the service members to vote. Why is this happening?
The administration... Look, everything is top down in the military, and if the word was coming down from the White House that DOD should be complying with this law and doing what they can to assist military voters, they would be doing it. But they clearly they aren't doing it.
Was this happening during let's say, the most recent administration, the Bush administration?
The Bush administration was actually very vigorous in trying to enforce military voting rights. I was actually at the Department of Justice during the Bush administration, and we filed a number of lawsuits against states that were not doing what they're supposed to under the federal law that guarantees the right of military voters to vote. And we actually were the first to come up with some new remedies that courts had never even considered, such as we sued the state of Georgia because they had sent out their absentee ballots too late to get overseas to places in Iraq and Afghanistan for the folks there to actually get the ballots, get them back in time. We forced the state, and the court agreed, we forced the state to set up Federal Express accounts that those military folks overseas could use to get their ballots back in time. Nobody had ever done that before, but you don't see this administration doing things like that.
I want to just jump in here on this one point that really struck me. Part of the rules and regulations that have come from the top, as you say, require that the mailing out anyway, and perhaps the mailing back, must be done with the United States Post Office. And the Post Office apparently said, no, we can't do it in the 3 days that FedEx and other competitive companies could do it. So they changed the rules to allow 7-day delivery because essentially because of the union power of the United States Postal Service. They are the only operation allowed to send out these ballots. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The law set up this procedure that said that as long as someone completed their military ballot and they got it to one of our military bases overseas by the 7th day before the election, then the U.S. Postal Service would supposedly get it back here. But the original bill, the way it was proposed, would have put this out for competitive bidding so that any company that does international express could have bid on this contract for the Pentagon, and it would have required that they only get their ballots to the military base by the Friday before the Tuesday election. But, of course, the Postal Service said, well, no, we can't do 3-day. They can't match 3-day international express service the way Federal Express and other companies can.
So the federal government allowed their union buddies at the Postal Service to essentially change the rules so that our servicemen who are defending our right to vote may very well be totally disenfranchised. And yet, you've got the talking heads everywhere in this country talking about white Republicans disenfranchising minorities who, in fact, are voting in many cases greater than their numbers. But there's no outcry whatsoever over what's going on at the military. That's sickening.
You mentioned the failure to set up voting assistance on bases, etc. But many, many more millions of dollars are being used to set up, if you will, voter assistance and get out the vote in inner city areas and non-English speaking people to show them how to get registered and so on and so forth.
Well, okay, Acorn and the like. Yeah, Hans, what's going on now with federal government funds going on to encourage folks to register and vote?
Well, I'm not sure that there are any funds being used for that. Fortunately, the money to Acorn got turned off by the federal government, but Acorn migrated all of its voter registration functions over to another organization called Project Vote, which I'm sure you all have heard of. Project Vote is active all across the country. They're basically the successor to Acorn.
Are they getting federal funds?
Not that I'm aware of, but they are getting a lot of money from many different liberal groups and liberal foundations.
George Soros?
Yes.
And I'm not, unlike, the left who wants to demonize the Koch brothers and others, I think it's fine for anybody to support whatever. But the simple facts are that the Acorn, which has been proven to be essentially a criminal enterprise, at least certain portions of it, is just morphed into a different organization who doesn't seem to be interested in the voting rights of our military, but most certainly in the voting rights of those who, for whatever reason, find life very comfortable living in this country without photo ID. We've got to take a break here shortly, but I'd like to touch base on one other thing, which really gets to the core of how easy it is to illegally vote. In many, many states, and I'm looking at the state of Michigan voter registration application right in front of me now. In many states, you do not need to be a citizen in order to get a driver's license. But in fact, the only documentation, and this is photo ID, that you need in order to register to vote is that driver's license. So we've set up, again, a system that really encourages people who are not legally entitled to vote to do so.
No, that's true, and I would be willing to bet you that if you interviewed individual DMV clerks, they would tell you they've been told to just offer the opportunity to register to vote to anybody that comes in for a driver's license and not to differentiate between people who they know are citizens and are not citizens.
And they are essentially the first line in this battle to make our elections fair and honest. And they're not even these troops in this battle are not even interested in winning the battle. They're actually interested in enabling the folks on the other side. Hans, this has been a great interview. Thank you for being on. Thank you for your efforts. Actually, I'd like to have you back on again talking about this event down in Mississippi in your book. I can't more highly recommend Who's Counting by Hans von Spakovsky. If you're going to Google it, you might want to just Google John Fund, F-U-N-D, a little easier to Google. But Who's Counting? Great book. Thank you for keeping up the fight. You guys at the Heritage Foundation are excellent. You care about the real American citizens, and hopefully we'll have you back on again. Have a great weekend.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for depressing me, too.
We'll be right back.
thought you loved me sometime. Whoa.
America had just gone to war when Felipe Adams volunteered.
I knew what I was signing up for. I knew the consequences. I took a bullet to the side and left me paralyzed.
For Armando de la Rosa, the Navy was a chance to serve and see the world.
I got medically discharged in 2001.
Armando and Felipe were brought together by a unique organization that serves our paralyzed veterans.
If there was no PVA, it'd be a lot of confusion. Our training is to better the veteran. We help out with the auto grant, the special housing adaptation grant, education, prosthetics. Our main focus is spinal cord injury and disease, but we see anybody.
First thing he had asked me before he even asked my name was I being taken care of as a veteran? And I thought that was pretty good.
Changing lives, building futures. That's Paralyzed Veterans of America. To learn more, visit pva.org.
Okay, honey, go play. My son needed a medical imaging exam, but talk of radiation made me a little concerned. So I asked our doctor, how will this exam improve his care? Are there alternative tests that don't use radiation? Is the facility accredited for quality and safety? And will he receive a child-sized radiation dose? Our doctor told me, if you need a scan, the benefits outweigh any risk.
If you're concerned about radiation, ask your doctor and get the facts at imagegently.org.
This is Mike McCready, Pearl Jam's lead guitarist. For the last 24 years, I've been living with Crohn's disease, a chronic and often painful digestive disease. Luckily, I have my disease under control. But so many of the 1.4 million Americans living with Crohn's and a similar disease called ulcerative colitis live day to day not knowing when their disease will strike next. You can help by joining one of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation's 130 Take Steps walks. Sign up today at cctakesteps.org. Take a step, register today.
Car number 7 is pulling into the pit.
What's my winning diabetes plan?
Start taking action now for diabetes. Medications.
Got them. And my insulin supplies.
Exercise.
Most days.
Blood sugar level? On target.
Diet. Eating healthy.
A1C under control.
Managing diabetes, including controlling blood sugar, is a team effort that requires a plan that's right for you. For more information, visit standfordiabetes.org.
A public service of TCOYD made possible with support from Sanofi Aventis US. I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize your message.
I can teach your children.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Clutching the envelope tightly, I stepped onto the ladder at the bottom of the treehouse. Something caught my eye above me and I looked up. Light! It looked as if there were a firework display going on inside the treehouse. Crackling and snapping and whizzing sounds spun around above my head, like shot-out and sparks dancing to the popping of noise. And then I looked up and saw... To find out what happens next, read Philippa Fisher's Fairy Godsister by Liz Kessler. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library. And visit read.gov, brought to you by the library.
We've got all these credit card bills. We've got to find a way to get out from under this debt.
The National Foundation for Credit Counseling is a nonprofit organization that has been helping people for 60 years. Speak with a counselor at 800-388-2227 or visit debtadvice.org. This is a public service campaign for the NFCC.
Tonight, partly cloudy, a low of 41. Southwest winds 10 to 15. It'll be mostly sunny tomorrow with gusty winds out of the southwest at 20 to 30 miles an hour with a high of 59. It's still windy on Tuesday with a chance of showers at a high of 60. For Wednesday, more showers at a high around 50. News Talk 1090, the talk of Muskegon.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum government.
Dadgum government. Well, we're finding the dadgum government is not really interested in making sure that our vote is counted and that the bad guys' votes seem to be a lot more important to them than those folks who are legally registered to vote in this United States. So we will come back to that issue over time. One of the ways that you can help out, and sadly, I don't think we're doing it to the level that we ought to here in Muskegon County, but the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, and the various Tea parties are in other counties actively involved in getting poll watchers and poll challengers and things like that to make sure that the rules are followed. I've done that before. It's actually a very interesting job, but that's not happening here, and hopefully as more and more people know what's going on, understand that there is a cancer out there, that we will make some noise in support of people like Michigan's Secretary of State Ruth Johnson in support of what they're doing, and not cave in to this voter suppression and it's racist. Frankly, it's garbage. And, the awful thing is that black Americans and white Americans and Hispanic Americans and combo Americans really all share the same ultimate goals. I mean, if somebody in a black community is stealing or is voting illegally, they're taking a vote away from somebody in that same community who is voting legally. So it's no different. We are all the same in that respect. We do have the big election coming up in about a month. I want to mention something. I get calls occasionally and emails from people saying, "Hey Jim, I need a little help on this voter initiative, or how about the judges?" And the judges are really the toughest one, because if you are not knowledgeable in a particular election, but you have people running as Republicans and Democrats, it's not always the right thing, but it's generally safe if you are conservative-ish. Vote for the Republican, because people who choose to run for public office and who choose to affiliate themselves with Republicans generally, not always, but generally stand for the same things. And the same thing with Democrats. People who want to affiliate themselves with the Democrat Party, they want to run as Democrats, you can say, well, okay, they stand for something. I think it's a safe bet that I could vote for that person if I don't know enough about them. I would say that's a decent rule of thumb when it comes to voting for these trustees of the universities, which is an impossible thing for me to discern who is good and who's bad. So typically, it wouldn't be a shock to people that I would pretty much vote for the Republicans running for these trustees. But it's much tougher when you look at judges, because the judges are nonpartisan. And I would just recommend that you do your homework. In the state of Michigan, there are 3 Republican nominees, Stephen Markman, Colleen O'Brien, and Brian Zahra, Z-A-H-R-A. Write them down. They are worthy of your vote. If you obviously you know where my political persuasion is, and if you are inclined to side with that, then Markman, O'Brien, Zahra, Z-A-H-R-A.
And there is some confusion out there, because there are some other very Irish-sounding names. And we're going to do a thing on our website talking about a number of things, the proposals and the judges. And what you just said is that people do not know who's running as the judges.
Yeah, it's very tough.
So 30% just leave that page blank. They don't know who they are, so they say the heck with it.
Well, let me address the issue that to me is really one that's of great concern. I know to our I think very excellent county clerk Nancy Waters here in Muskegon, but I've got in front of me the ballot. I'm going to be voting absentee, and this ballot is 20 inches by 8.5. So it's not 8.5 by 11. It's 8.5 by 20 on both sides of the paper. It covers almost all of the paper. It's huge. John Van Wyck on the morning show last week did something that I thought was excellent. He when he got his absentee ballot, he got a little stopwatch out and timed himself. Now, John knows the issues. It took him 8 minutes to fill out his absentee ballot. Well, you can imagine what these lines are going to be like when you get in to vote this year. It's the longest ballot I've ever seen in my life. There are, for instance, even on the President of the United States, there are five candidates for president, and the regent for the University of Michigan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know that in Eggleston County, or Eggleston Township, where they had the winner in the primary who died of a heart attack shortly after that election, there are going to be as many as 6, 7, 8, who knows, maybe even more write-in candidates to be supervisor for Eggleston Township. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you do your homework. You can go to the Muskegon County website. You can go to the Secretary of State website. You can contact your county clerk, your better yet, contact your township or city clerk. Make sure that you have seen the ballot. Not just done your homework on the candidates and the issues, but seen the ballot and know how you're going to vote before you enter into the ballot box. Or better yet, I hate to, especially after talking with Hans, I hate to talk about going into or adding more people to the absentee ballot rolls. But if you can vote absentee, do that because what's going to happen, I promise you this, people are going to wait in line. They're going to go to vote. They're going to see these big long lines, and a lot of people are going to drop off, and that's just wrong. So this is a way to reduce the lines and get yourself knowledgeable. So that's my pitch.
You just convinced me.
Well, if you're over 60, you can do it legally, and I'm going to even suggest that if you're not 60, you might even fib a little bit, and you might say that you don't expect to be in town during Election Day. It's going to be It's a very long ballot, folks. So, enough. I don't want to beat that one to death, but I do want you to remember it because it does matter. Jim, you had some other issues.
Yeah, we talked a little bit more about the LG plant. And a little while ago, maybe a week or two, Pete Hoekstra brought up the LG plant. And, he had some somewhat negative things to say about
Peter
it.
Hoekstra, of course, our past congressman here running for the United States Senate against a very, very long-term Debbie Stabenow.
Entrenched, I would say.
Entrenched.
And so the paper this morning called him out for saying that the demise of LG Chem, or calling it the next Solyndra, is very premature. And that they went into what I call excuse mode. Well, it was just the timing, and perhaps that the batteries are going to be a success. It may not be as fast as they had originally hoped, but get out there and buy yourself a Volt, and I'm sure that the battery plant will thrive, if you will, if everybody goes and buys a Volt.
Well, we see that already, and of course, General Motors, again, I think for the second or perhaps even the third time, has stopped production of the Volt. The reality is that the product that these plants, which would not exist with billions and billions of funding from the United States, and in this case to a South Korean company, essentially, they wouldn't be making product if they weren't subsidized. And now we're finding that not only these batteries, very, very environmentally awful, and there's no plans, nothing that I've seen to take care of the batteries when they burn out. But the people aren't buying the vehicles. The plants will be like Solyndra. And the interesting thing is, you got the left, the liberal media will go out and say, "Oh, you're premature." So when should we, as the president of Israel said, when is it too late? Are we only supposed to talk about this after they've gone bankrupt? I mean, we know that money's, even last week, the administration was writing big $100 million checks to a variety of other these green energy companies that, in fact, we know probably aren't going to be around. We know that they're not sustainable. Even the New York Times had a front page article saying the windmills and the battery plants are not sustainable without billions and billions and billions of more American tax dollars.
Another Holland plant used to make fiberglass boats, is now making these 100-foot long propeller blades. And you see them on the highway in these trucks. It's like, they're 10 miles long, so to speak. And that's a raving success, according to our local paper.
Well, it's a great raving success at sucking dollars. Hey, Oscar, if you're out there, we miss you. Get well soon. We do expect you back. Don't forget, we're on TV 38 and Comcast TV 397 every Monday night, 8 to 9:30. Thanks again, Brian Thomas, Hans von Spakovsky, Jim Chiodo.
Thanks for having me.
I'll spell you correctly down the road. All you wonderful listeners out there in Muskegon land, and, of course, this whole crew at KBZ, wonderfully helpful. Next Sunday, we've got candidates for two of the most important and most powerful elected positions in Muskegon County government. Muskegon County Treasurer Tony Malaciotis and his Republican challenger, who also happens to be chairman of the Muskegon Tea Party, Eric Rodoff, and a familiar face to almost everyone around our county, the Republican candidate for Muskegon County Clerk, Cindy Fairfield. So we'll have a conversation with each one of them, one at a time. We'll get on it next week at Eye on Muskegon.
Holland Hydroponic Outlet has it all. Complete light systems, hydroponics, ventilation, nutrients, and soil in Holland, Grand Haven, and South Haven. Check out Torched Glass Art Studio next to the Holland store, creating one-of-a-kind glass pipes.
If you even think you may be in danger of foreclosure, call the National Foundation for Credit Counseling today at 866-687-6322 or visit mortgagehelpnow.org. That's 866-687-6322 or visit mortgagehelpnow.org. This has been a public service from the NFCC.
24,000 children die every day from preventable causes. My name is Neo, and I believe that number should be 0. Believe in 0.
Join the effort. Visit UNICEFUSA.org.
The Talk of Muskegon is News Talk 1090 WKBZ Muskegon and heard 24 hours a day on WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Now, 1-800-863-3309. That's 1-800-863-3309.
This is WKBZ Muskegon and WOOD HD2 Muskegon.
Good morning and welcome to October 7th, 2012. And it's a Sunday morning here, 10 o'clock in the morning, which means it's polka time. Good morning, I'm Tom Sanaki, your West Michigan polka DJ. And I'm here on the Talk of Muskegon with the polka melodies all the way up until noon today for your polka enjoyment. Lots of entertainment for you all the way up until noon. Come on, let's sing along with Walter.
Hello, hello, hello. What a wonderful